If you know me personally, or just see what I post on Twitter, or watch videos on the channel, you know there are two forms of entertainment that really make me happy. That being Final Fantasy XIV and RWBY. Both this game and this series have made me happy. They've made me sad. Sometimes even a little angry. But what I've always wanted to really start dedicating this channel to has been both of these entities. Because Final Fantasy has been a juggernaut for decades now, where RWBY sadly may not be as huge as Final Fantasy. It has become a worldwide phenomenon and a worldwide success. And so that's recently why I've really been toying with the idea of, what if RWBY did a collab with Final Fantasy XIV, where you would get a quest. Don't know if any of the characters would actually show up in the game, but at the end of the quest, depending on your job, you would get an armor set and a weapon inspired by a character of RWBY. Sounds like a really cool idea, doesn't it? It's something that I wish would happen. I don't know if it ever will, but if it does, this is how I think it would play out. These are the RWBY characters that I think would be featured and used for these armor sets, so I hope you really, really enjoy it. So let's get to the video. What's up, everyone? It's Cannan, and welcome back to another video combining RWBY with Final Fantasy XIV. Sadly, Jess is not with me. She is at work, but she's also been pretty under the weather here recently with allergies, so I don't know if she would be capable of being in the video or not, because she's been coughing a lot, sniffling a lot, so yeah, she's getting a little bit better. But yeah, allergy season has definitely come to our area. But yeah, as the intro said, for a while I have been thinking, what if, just what if, RWBY and Final Fantasy XIV were able to do a collab event where a quest would come up, and like I said, I don't know if any of the characters would actually show up. It would be cool if they did, because they've done collab things with like Final Fantasy XV where Noctis showed up and things like that, so maybe. But what would happen is you would do a quest, don't know how long, maybe it would be a long string of quests, maybe it would be only like 2, 3, or 4, and at the end of that, depending on your job class, you could select an armor set and a weapon inspired by a RWBY character. Now, since you can play pretty much every job in Final Fantasy XIV, once you complete that quest, if you have a job that meets the level requirement of the quest, and most collab quests are like level 15 or something like that, so if you had any job leveled at least above 15, you could get the items. But you could just switch your job and get the set for that character as well. So really, if all of your jobs are level 15, you would get these armor sets and weapons. Now, please keep in mind, I only did one RWBY character per job, so if your favorite is not in this video, I'm sorry. Characters that will definitely be in this are, of course, Team RWBY, Team Juniper, and some others. I mostly used the art from Amity Arena for this, though there are some of these characters that were not in Amity Arena, so it's just screen grabs from the show. But and some of them don't exactly fit. Like, there are some who are part of a job that doesn't really fit the weapon they use, but the weapon that that job class uses would be inspired still by that weapon. So yeah, some are a little non-traditional. So yeah, we've got a bit, because we're going over every job in Final Fantasy XIV. And so, hey, let's get it started. If you enjoy our content, please hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, click that like button, leave a comment, all that good stuff. So let's get started. The first one we are going to start with is the Paladin, which starts as a gladiator and then becomes a Paladin at level 30. So tanks are not exactly my favorite. They kind of what's the great way to say this? It's hard, I think. I think it is very, very hard to tank. I've never been good at it. I do have a tank that is like level 90, actually, because I wanted to do the role quests in Walker, plus the ones in Shadowbringer. So yes, I did use a lot of time to get those leveled up. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all. But yeah, so anyway, Paladin. So a little description of Paladins. For centuries, the elite of the Sultan Sworn have served as personal bodyguards to the royal family of Ul'dah. Known as Paladins, these men and women marry exquisite swordplay and stalwart shield work to create a style of combat uncompromising in its defense. Clad in brilliant silver armor, they charge fiercely into battle, ever ready to lay down their lives for their liege. To be a paladin is to protect, and those who choose to walk this path will become the iron foundation upon which the party's defense is built. So yes, very tank-like, and so that is the Paladin. So use a sword and shield, armor. So the thing about the Paladin is, as a tank, your role is not really to deal damage. It's to keep the enemy's attention. They usually have very high HP, so they can last through all that, though if their HP does get low, that's where the healer comes in. But Paladins also have an ability to heal themselves. I don't know if you can use that ability to heal others, but you can heal yourself. They do have a little healing skill. And so for Paladins who would complete this quest, they would get a sword and a shield and an armor set based off Jean. I think Jean fits a Paladin very well, also because of his semblance, being able to amplify aura, which in turn heals someone, because that's part of what an aura does. It's not only a shield in a way, but it also heals. So yes, Paladins, you would get Jean-inspired armor and weapons. So moving on, gonna try and do this as fast as I can, because like I said, there's a lot. Paladin is also very special because not only was it the Warrior of Light's job that was used in the Endwalker trailer, but it has a lot of significance in Final Fantasy. Next is Warrior. Now, a warrior is the Cannan, if you want to say that. There's no real Cannan class, because you can literally be any job you want. You can be any of them at any time, but it's the class that the Warrior of Light is in the Realm Reborn trailer. So some info on the warrior. On the northernmost edge of Albathia's spine exists a mountain tribe renowned for producing fearsome mercenaries. Wielding great axes and known as warriors, these men and women learn to harness their inner beasts and translate that power to unbridled savagery on the battlefield. In former times, which saw war waged ceaselessly in Eorzea, the warriors featured prominently on the front lines of battle. With the arrival of peacetime, however, their art has descended into the shadows of obscurity, where it remains to this day. So, kind of dark, a little bit like, but to me, no one wreaks war on the battlefield in RWBY like Nora. So if you were a warrior, you would get armor and a weapon inspired by Nora. Yes, she uses a hammer, but come on, a hammer is just as is pretty much a great axe at this point. So yeah, I just think that's Nora. That definitely fits her. Is she can be savage a little bit, and as a tank, she can take damage, especially, and she can also deal it once she has electricity within her. But yeah, warrior goes to Nora. Next, we have Dark Knight. Now, this is a Heaven's Ward class that you don't get until you get into Heaven's Ward. The pious Ishgardian clergy guide the flock, and the devout knights protect the weak. Yet even the holiest of men succumb to the darkness of temptations. None dare to administer justice to these, I cannot say that word, elite residing outside the reach of the law. Who then defends the feeble from the transgressions of those meant to guide and protect them? A valiant few take up arms to defend the downtrodden, and not even the holiest priests and knights can escape their judgment. Pariahs in their own land, they are known by many as Dark Knights. These sentinels bear no shields declaring their allegiance. Instead, their great swords act as beacons to guide the meek through darkness. So despite being dark, they actually have a very noble cause. Now, I've not played as a Dark Knight. I've heard its quest line is one of the best in the game. It's also the class that the Warrior of Light is in the Shadowbringers trailer. Now, this character that I chose for Dark Knight is not valiant at all. She's not a good person in a lot of ways, but I do think her redemption is coming. But I think she fits the aesthetic of a Dark Knight, and that would be Raven. I think Raven would be perfect for the Dark Knight. Yes, she does not wield a great sword, but the great sword would still be, based off her weapon. So yes, Dark Knight would be Raven. Next, we have Gunbreaker. So Gunbreaker is an interesting class. It's based off, of course, characters who wielded gunblades in former Final Fantasy games. Squall in Final Fantasy VIII, or as Kingdom Hearts fans will know him as Leon. And then, of course, Lightning in Final Fantasy XIII. So, about Gunbreaker, the Hrothgar of Northern Islabarb have passed the art of the gunblade from one generation to the next. The weapon itself combines a sword with a firing mechanism, admitting a range of magical effects by utilizing authentically imbued cartridges, pretty much magic-induced bullets, originally employed by Queen Gunhild's personal guard. They were once known as Gunhild's blades and differ greatly from the similarly named weapons used in the Garlean Empire. So yes, a lot of soldiers in the Empire use swords with handles that look like guns, and they can fire and all that. So this was hard because this could literally be any character in RWBY because everyone's weapon is also a gun. But out of all the characters who I think could actually pull this look off, it's gotta be Crow. Yes, Crow uses a scythe like a Reaper, but I just think Crow's design fits the Gunbreaker. So yeah, if you were a Gunbreaker, you would get Crow's an outfit inspired by Crow, and also a weapon inspired by Crow. Alright, so now we are moving on to the healers, and this was hard because there's not many healers in RWBY. So I kind of went based off like personalities and like characters who, if they were characters whose personalities would fit, I think, in a lot of ways for a healer. So first, we are going with White Mage, which is a starting class in A Realm Reborn. And really, when I chose to be a healer for the role quest, I went with White Mage because everyone said it was the easiest. But yeah, it's very basic. It's the most basic out of the healers. White magic, the arcane art of succor, was conceived eras past that the world might know comfort. Alas, man began perverting its power for self-gain, and by his wickedness brought about the sixth umbral catastrophe. Although the art subsequently became forbidden, it is now in the midst of a revival at the hands of the Padla, chosen of the elements. I butcher all of this. So, those who would walk the path of the White Mage are healers without peer, possessed of the power to deliver comrades from the dearest of afflictions, even the icy grip of death itself. So yeah, it's always good to have a healer, because if you die, they can res you. So I had a character in mind for this at first, but then I swapped that character with this character, and even though he is not a healer, I think just the pureness of White Mage would go to Oscar. I could definitely see Oscar as a healer. No, he hasn't. But the fact that Oscar is one of the few in the series that can actually use magic, as we've seen in Volume 8, mostly just thanks to Ospen. But I think he fits a White Mage, really. Not really any other reason behind that. Like I said, healers was the hardest. Next, we are moving on to Scholar. Don't know much about this one. I actually sometimes forget that this class actually exists. But it was added in... When was it added? Oh, it was a starter. Okay, it was a starter in A Realm Reborn. So Scholar and Summoner are very unique in that they both start as an Arcanist, and at some point you choose whether to be DPS, which is a Summoner, or a Healer, which is a Scholar. In an age-long past, when mankind flourished under the radiance of arcane mastery, the island of Villebrand was home to a city-state called Nim. Though the history of that age tells of countless wars waged with earth-shattering incantations, it was the brilliant strategic maneuvering of Nim's scholars that allowed their mundane army of mariners to throw back would-be conquerors time and again. These learned men and women defended the freedom of their tiny nation with their unique command over spell-weaving fairies, utilizing the creatures' magics to help the wounded and bolster the strength of their allies. So yes, if you're ever playing Final Fantasy XIV and you see a character run by with a little fairy, that's a Scholar. Once again, this character is not a healer by any mage, but I think she fits the image, at least, of a Scholar. And that would be Glinda. So yes, if you did this quest, you'd get an outfit like Glinda's. The headpiece would probably be her glasses. But the Scholar uses a book, so I don't really know how her little whipping cane or whatever it is, would be transferred to that. Maybe just the color of it would be on the book. But yeah, I really couldn't think of anyone else for Scholar, so I went with Glinda. So next we have Astrologian, which, from what I've heard by people who actually play it, it is probably one of the most difficult healing classes to play. Ever has man coveted knowledge, and none more so than that of his fate. Thus did he labor to master the skill of foresight, but initial efforts bore little fruit. That is, until he looked to the stars above, which foretell the coming seasons, and learned to read the heavens. Through this gift is known today as astrology. The people of Sharlayan saw fit to not only read the stars, but to write their movements as well. By attuning their ethereal energies to that of constellations, they learned to wield magics with heretofore unseen properties. Thus was astromancy born, a new form of magic which grants its users power over fate, employing a star globe and divining deck in their golly, in their deeds. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Fortune always smiles upon these masters of arcana. So yeah, Astrologian has a lot going for it. I don't think I would ever attempt this class. Now this one was hard. I could not think of anyone that even uses a weapon that looks like this. But the whole trying to have like mastery over fate and things like that, to me that screamed Ozpin. I just definitely think that it fits him the most, just with everything that he has attempted throughout his many lifetimes. He uses a cane though, so how would that translate? The globe would just have the color palette pretty much. So yeah, this one was hard. I really could not think of anyone else. It was really just the description of an Astrologian that reminded me of Ozpin. Alright, the next healer and the last healer. Yeah, there's only 4 healing classes, just like there's only 4 tanks, is Sage. Now, this was introduced in Endwalker. It actually became pretty popular because, in a way, it's kind of a healer, but also the little things that are attached to your back and all that can actually attack as well, so they're kind of a DPS in a way. But Sage, the nation of Sharlayan is the cradle of knowledge, and the studium is its foremost institution of learning, yet more so than its incomparable library and formidable assemblance of archons. This prestigious academy is famed for blending traditionally distinct fields of produce revolutionary new disciplines. Among these, perhaps the most distinguished, is an altruistic art which draws upon the wisdom of astrology, sorcery, and medicine, dubbed somnonautics. My gosh, the people who write for Final Fantasy really need to use smaller words. The art seeks to heal and protect by manipulating corporeal aether through the use of nonoliths, a flying array of foci. Practitioners are dedicated to the betterment of mankind, and for their wisdom and compassion eventually came to be known simply as sages. Now, this was once again another hard one. At first, I did not know who this would be, but then the nonolith made me realize that it would be Penny. Now, yes, Penny is not a healer. She would more really be a tank, probably. But, I don't know. It just, Penny's personality, how pure she is, and the fact that she does have her swords that levitate behind her and around her, that said the nonolith to me. So I think the best way to incorporate her weapon into Final Fantasy XIV would for her to be a sage. Because of it already uses these things that fly around when attacking, but then are attached to your back when you're not using them. So yes, Sage goes to Penny. So now we are in DPS, which is the longest list, and it's separated into 3 categories. We're going to start with melee DPS first, and the first one up, which is my personal favorite, the one I use the most, it's my main character's main job that is like their Cannan, that would be Monk. To me, Monk is fun to play. I really like characters that use their hands and feet to fight instead of swords and stuff like that. So a little bit about Monk. Though now under Garlean rule, the city-state of Alamigo once boasted the greatest military might of all of Eorzea. Among its standing armies were the monks. Aesthetic warriors, as dreaded by foes on the field of battle as the city-state's great pikemen. The monks comprised an order known as the Fists of Ralgr, and it was to this god, the Destroyer, that they devoted their lives of worship. By mastering seats of power within the body known as chakra, they are capable of performing extraordinary physical feats. Who does that sound like? It sounds like Yang. So yes, monks would get Yang, and I didn't even decide that just because Monk is my preferred job and Yang is my favorite character in RWBY, but it fits her. She uses her hands and feet. She punches, she kicks, she can generate a lot of power. She is the strongest of Team RWBY physically. Yes, it would be Yang. I don't know how they would incorporate her prosthetic. Maybe one arm would be completely armored, maybe in some way. They've done that with a few armor sets. I don't know if they've done that necessarily for Monk, but they have for other jobs. But yes, Monk is very hard hitting. It's very explosive sometimes. That screams Yang. So us Monk players would get an outfit and weapon that would be inspired by Yang. Next is Dragoon, which is probably one of the more popular jobs. It's also one of the more stronger ones. At one point, I don't know if it is still, but at one point it was the most heavy damage dealer. Of all things that are symbolic of the nation of Ishgard, few are more recognized than the Dragoon. Born amidst the timeless conflict between men and dragons, these lance-wielding knights have developed an aerial style of combat that they might better pierce the scaled hides of their mortal foes. Taking to the firmament as though it were an extension of the land, they descend upon the enemy with every ounce of their bodies behind the blow. It is this parative power that characterizes the Dragoon. Yeah, they jump all over the place. Now, this character does not primarily use a lance, but her weapon is so versatile. It's a sword, it's a rifle, and it can also be a lance. Pyrrha. Yes, I chose Pyrrha for Dragoon just because I think she's the closest to a Dragoon. And a lot of times I remember seeing her use her weapon more in its lance or spear form than many of the others, though she used it in its sword form as well. So yes, Dragoons would get Pyrrha. Next, we are at Ninja, and I think everyone can already guess who is going to get Ninja. Ninja is a very interesting story. It did not launch with the game, which is weird because Rogue, aka Thief, and the Ninja were in Final Fantasy I. It was one of the job classes you could pick in Final Fantasy I. So it's kind of weird that it was not a starting job, but it was later added, and when you get level 15, you can start being a Rogue, and then at level 30, you become a Ninja. Hailing from the war-torn lands of the Far East, the secret arts of the ninja were born of necessity, and have since given rise to a unique breed of highly trained combatants. Able to manipulate the vital energies of the land, the air, and living beings, they manifest their power through the weaving of signs, unleashing a wide array of attacks against their foes. Master the arts of the ninja and learn to bend the tide of battle to your will. And of course, the one that would be inspired for ninja players would be Blake. Blake is literally a ninja. Everyone has always called her a cat ninja. What else do you need? Even her semblance is very ninja-like. She literally can make copies of herself, and she literally, from shadow, she could literally hide herself if she wanted to. I mean, come on, in RWBY Chibi, Ninja Vanish, So, yes, ninja players would get an armor set and a weapon set based off Blake. Samurai. Now, Samurai was hard. Which is sad because Samurai is one of my favorite ones to play. It used to be very, very OP, but they kind of nerfed it, which is kind of sad. But it was first shown off in Stormblood. And, see, what does it say about Samurai? Far across the rolling waves, towards the rising sun, there lies the isolated nation of Hingashi. In the distant past, the realm's great lords vied for supremacy over its sea-girt confines in a long and bloody conflict, and taking to the battle in their lieges' names were noble swordsmen whose art was forged in the crucible of war, the samurai. Eventually, the nation was unified under one banner, and these warriors came to wield their katana not upon fields as part of an army, but upon streets as protectors of the peace. Kind of sounds like Jedi, don't it? It's because Jedi are mostly in part based off samurai. But as a neglected blade grows dull with rust, so to do men forget their purpose. Amidst waning memories of the old ways, a determined few hold fast to their convictions, hands by katana grips, awaiting the moment for steel to sing. It's a pretty cool way to end it. So, like, I think it's kind of safe with the character I went with, but they don't wield a katana. But, like I said, the weapon would be inspired. So the one I chose for Samurai is, of course, Ren. I think a samurai outfit inspired by any of Ren's outfits would be amazing looking. And I think a katana that was green, but with like the pointy ends of the blades on his weapons would look really, really cool. And the sheath could also be inspired. The greens, the blacks, some of the white, but also some pink, I think would actually look really, really good. So yes, Samurai would get Ren. Next we have Reaper. Now, this was added in Endwalker. Very fun class to play. The Garlean's forebears were once humble farmers who made their home among the sun-drenched fields of southern Isambard. That was until they were driven from this paradise by invaders wielding arcane magics. Forced north into the frigid mountains, the survivors sought a means to tap into the reservoir of aether otherwise close to them. A daring few found their answer within the void, binding themselves to its creatures to gain verboten power fed by the souls of the slain. Once more they took up their scythes, this time to reap a crimson harvest. That's pretty dark. That's pretty deep, but it doesn't fit the character that I picked for this. But I think you all know because she's probably the most famous scythe wielder ever. And that being RWBY. RWBY would get Reaper, even though it's a very dark class with a very dark backstory. But I could see RWBY getting chummy with her Void Scent, being like, "Oh, you're cool," or something like that. But like this was a no-brainer. RWBY would be a Reaper. Like she literally uses a scythe. So yeah, Reapers, you would get RWBY. You would get an outfit based off RWBY, and you would literally get Crescent Rose pretty much. Which there's already a scythe in the game that's red and all that looks kind of like Crescent Rose. I've seen it. And I actually had to take a second look. I was like, is that, And there's people who have made their character look like RWBY to use it. So now we are getting into ranged DPS. And the first one is the Bard, which starts off as an archer. Even after you become a Bard, you still use a bow and arrow. And at first, I was like, oh my gosh, who am I going to pick for this? The word Bard originally puts folk in mind of those of minstrels, fair of voice and nimble of finger, who earn their coin performing in taverns and halls of great lords. Few know, however, that bards in fact trace their origins back to the bowmen of Eld, who sang in the heat of battle to fortify the spirits of their companions. In time, their impassioned songs came to hold sway over the hearts of men, inspiring their comrades to great feats and granting peace unto those who lay upon the precipice of death. So this was hard because I was like, oh man, who in RWBY uses a bow and arrow? Well, I then remembered. Cinder does. Cinder is like, I think, one of the only characters I think we've seen that literally uses a bow and arrow. And so, Bard wielders, you would get Cinder. I don't know if you're happy about that, but it's kind of weird, a job that's like peace and, giving, increasing the fortitude of the soldiers by singing goes to someone like Cinder. Hey, it's not my fault that there's not more bow and arrow users in RWBY. But, yeah, so Bards get Cinder. Next is Machinist, which is one of the more unique jobs in RWBY. In Final Fantasy XIV, because they mostly use guns and turrets. Once again, that could be anyone in RWBY, but I think I nailed it on this one. The war with Dravania rages on, brutal and unrelenting. With no end in sight, the Holy See grows desperate. As her Dragoons lay down their lives in defense of their home, Ishgard turns to technology to protect her sons and daughters. Great cannons and ballistas now line the city walls, plucking dragons from the sky. Following the example of Sid Garland, who has demonstrated the potency of Magitech, the Sky Steel Manufactory works tirelessly on the development of advanced armaments. As new and devastating weapons are brought to the fray, a new class of champion arises to wield them, the Machinist. Now, these characters can use turrets and everything like that, and I was like, this character uses a Gatling gun. So, Machinist, you would get Coco. And I think out of all the other characters, Coco fits the best. I mean, come on. The strap to her bag and her belt have bullets on them. I mean, and her symbol is literally a bullseye in a way. So, like, I was like, Coco has got to be the Machinist. Like, that, it fits a little too well almost. So yeah, that's really it. The fact that they can use turrets and stuff like that, and I thought of Coco's Gatling gun, it's no-brainer. That Machinists, you would get an armor and weapon based off Coco. So next, we have Dancer. Now, I will admit, I originally didn't know who I was. I thought maybe Neon, maybe even Cinder before I realized, oh yeah, she uses a bow and arrow. But Dancer was tough. From the Near Eastern nation of Thavnir comes a troupe of bewitchingly graceful performers. Though certainly elegant and beautiful, their movements also speak of martial discipline, of a pulsing, persistent energy whose rhythm can inspire souls and soothe troubled hearts. Inured to the hardships of the road, these dancers have learned to land throwing weapons with the same exacting precision as their footfalls, removing any who would obstruct the endless beat of the dance. Now, even though that description does not exactly fit this character, I think the way she fights has always been fluid, majestic, almost like she is dancing. And that's Neo. I just think that even though she uses a parasol that has a blade hidden in it, I could see Neo being a dancer, like not that, like this kind of dancer, like a dancer that uses weaponry and all that. So yeah, dancers would get Neo. Now we have magic ranged DPS. And first would be Black Mage. Now, Black Mage was also tough because I was like, who could really... Because Black Mage, yes, they use black magic and all that, but they're not inherently evil, though they could be. And I don't know. I had a hard time with this one, but I think I picked the only one that could really fit the aesthetic of it. In days long past, there existed an occult and arcane art known as black magic, a potent magic of pure destructive force, born forth by a sorceress of unparalleled power. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Those who learned to wield this instrument of ruin came to be called black mages, out of both fear and respect for their gift. Yet great powers serve to corrupt the judgment of mortal man, and so he unknowingly set upon the path of ruin. Adventurers who take the black will become agents of devastation, capable of annihilating those who oppose them through little more than the force of their will. Well, if you ask me, that sounds like Salem. So yeah, black mages, rejoice, you get the Dark Mama. Yeah, so you, like, thing is, we've never really seen, I don't think, Salem use a weapon, so I guess the staff you get would just be very grimified looking, I'm guessing. But yes, Black Mage would go to Salem. I think that's a very safe bet. Now, this next one was a little hard. That would be Summoner. Now, once again, Summoner comes from Arcanist, which you can either become a Summoner or a Scholar. The beast tribes of Eorzea worship and summon forth beings known as primals, among which are Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan. Yet, what is a god to one man is a demon to another. For the city-states of Eorzea, these beings as a grave threat to their collective survival. For time immemorial, there lived mages who had not only the power to summon the primals, but also the means to transmute the primals' essences, thus binding them to their will, known simply as summoners. The existence of these men and women and their arcane art have been all but lost to the ages. So, I know a lot of you are probably thinking Weiss, but I gave Weiss another job, so I went with the next best thing, and that would be Winter, who has the same summoning power as Weiss, though Winter uses a sword and a summoner uses a book. The book could still be interpreted to reflect Winter's weapon. But yeah, the fact that both her and Weiss can summon Grimm that they have defeated would translate into Final Fantasy XIV as a summoner. So yes, summoner goes to Winter. Next we have Red Mage, one of the more unique classes in Final Fantasy XIV. On the eastern edge of Albathia's spine lies the mountainous region of Garabania. It is in these elevated lands that people took shelter when a burning star guided them away from the six umbral calamity's treacherous floodwaters. The survivors gathered from near and far, and amongst them were refugees of the sorceress cities of Macha and Andapur. These sworn enemies buried their history for the sake of the future and cast aside their vestments of black and white. Upon the remnants of their arts, a new discipline was built, and the first red mages stepped forward with rapiers in hand to fight back against the rising tides of destruction. Well, you already heard rapier. And even though her outfit is not all red, Weiss would go to red mages. And it's mostly because Weiss is such a versatile character. The fact that she can use all kinds of dust would translate to red mage, because red mage can use different types of magic. They can use black magic to attack. They can use white magic to heal and res fallen party members. So red mage is very versatile as well, as it doesn't stick to just one type of magic. And I think that translates to Weiss very well. So for me personally, Team RWBY would be RWBY as a Reaper, Weiss as a red mage, Blake as a ninja, and Yang as a monk. Very DPS friendly, but what can I say? I think that fits, because Yang's also a tank in a way, so she can also fill that role. And a red mage, though not as helpful as a full-on healer, can act as a healer in a lot of ways. So yes, red mage would get Weiss. And the last one is a limited job, so it's not used primarily to go through the main story, because I think there's a lot of duties that a blue mage can't do. But yes, last would be blue mage, a very unique job. So let's see here. A so-called mage of rather questionable character claims to have mastered an outlandish form of spellcasting that resembles neither black nor white magic during his voyage to the New World. Allegedly, anyone who purchases one of his soul crystals can learn to mimic the ethereal magics of wild creatures. But can he be trusted, or is he merely a con artist looking to make a quick gil? Can mimic magics from monsters. You ask me, that sounds like Velvet in her semblance, where after using her camera, can pretty much mimic the weapons and fighting styles of people that she's taking pictures of. So where it's a limited job, where there's not much you can do with it in a lot of ways, blue mage people, you would get Velvet, because it just fits Velvet's semblance. And I could even see the weapon being her camera. That way, when you would draw it, it would go, you would use the camera. But, yeah, that is it. That is every job in Final Fantasy XIV as of right now. Because Dawn Trail is going to add at least 2 more, and one is going to be a melee DPS, and another one is going to be a magical ranged DPS. I really think the melee is going to be pirate inspired just because of the trailer. But, so yeah, that is every Final Fantasy XIV job and a RWBY character that you would get inspired gear from if RWBY and Final Fantasy XIV ever done a collab event. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, click that like button, leave a comment, all that good stuff. As always, guys, this is Canaan. Me and Jess love you all very, very much. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.